Okay, I have 3 points. Three points that I want to make in this period of time. Newscasters and politicians will soon tell you that March 19th marks 8 years of U.S. war in Iraq. This is not true. This day, 20 years ago, I was sitting in the Arabian desert waiting to attack Iraq. The war began the next day, that's tomorrow, January 16th, with bombings. With thousands of U.S. troops rolled into Iraq on February 23rd. So my first point is that the U.S. began waging war on the people of Iraq 20 years ago. Today, we have 50,000 troops still there. Now, some people think the war is over, but it's not. They are still there, 50,000 troops. And we have pledged, our government has pledged to finally bring it to an end by the end of this year. So I say to you, hold our government accountable. Do not let them push that forward. We have to bring those troops home. Now, as I said, we have been at war in Iraq for 20 years. October 12th will mark 10 years of U.S. war in Afghanistan. So far in both wars, nearly 6,000 U.S. troops have been killed and tens of thousands injured. Hundreds of thousands of Iraqis and Afghanis have been killed, have died. The war has cost nearly $1.2 trillion. This is more than the $787 billion that we've spent on the stimulus that supposedly is trying to save our economy. New Jersey's portion of that $1.2 trillion is $52 billion. And the city of Newark, which means us, you and I, are paying $825 million and counting. So my second point, money spent on war could help us here at home. Bloomberg News reports that New Jersey has a $10.5 billion deficit. Governor Christie is planning to cut Medicaid as well as other important services like education. Last year, Newark had a $100 million deficit. So the $32 billion and the $825 billion spent on war could easily cover both deficits for years. Veterans for Peace asks, how is the war economy working for you? From what I can tell with the joblessness, budget cuts, and layoffs, it's not working too well for most of us. But believe me, I assure you, there are chosen few who are getting richer and richer. Now moving on to my third point. This past Friday, the Pentagon's top lawyer, J.C. Johnson, gave a keynote speech to the Department of Defense for the 26th annual observance of Dr. King's life. Johnson speculated on King's position on the war. Now remember, he's the top lawyer for the Pentagon. Quoting Mr. Johnson from the DOD's website, I believe that if Dr. King were alive today, he would recognize that we live in a complicated world and that our nation's military should not and cannot lay down its arms and leave the American people vulnerable to terrorist attack. That's what he said. This is sad and a sad and crazy illustration of how Dr. King's legacy is being twisted and hijacked to justify positions and actions he would find indefensible. We are constantly reminded of his nonviolent methods, but there is little emphasis on the purpose of his mission, to resist injustice, and his challenge to us to create a beloved community where each person's human dignity is universally recognized. King's anti-war stance is clear and is best known, as Larry said, via his 1967 speech against the Vietnam War at Riverside Church. But he spoke strongly against war before that time. In Strength to Love, published in 1963, King admonished the church, saying their support of war is testimony to the fact that the church has hearkened more to the authority of the world than the authority of God. King plainly spoke against the war in his 1964 Nobel laureate speech when he cited war as one of the three larger problems that grow out of man's ethical immaturity. They are racial injustice, poverty, and war. We still face those today. So my last point is to challenge each and every one of us here, including myself, to read one or more of Dr. King's books between now and April 4th, the day of his death. We must not let brothers, and my man, Mr. Johnson, was a brother, who are confused. I think he's confused. And people like Glenn Beck, who knowingly twist King's legacy, be the leading voices educating about King. We cannot allow that. We must build on King's legacy of peace and justice. We must echo his challenge to undergo a radical revolution of values. He tells us we must rapidly begin to shift from a thing-oriented society to a persons-oriented society, when machines and computers profit motives and property rights are considered more important than people. The giant triplets of racism, materialism, and militarism are incapable of being conquered. He warns us that a nation that continues year after year to spend more money on military defense than on programs of social uplift is approaching spiritual death. Heeding his warnings and meeting his challenges are crucial to our survival today. I challenge all of us to remember King by reading his words, meeting his challenges, and walking in his path. Let us reclaim his dream, power to the people, and power to the peaceful. Thank you.